All right, let's dive into a topic that's been a real medical roller coaster: testosterone and your heart. You've probably seen the headlines, right? One day it's dangerous, the next day it's protective. It's enough to make your head spin. So today, we're going to cut through the noise, follow the science, and see if we can piece this puzzle together. So, what's the deal? Is testosterone a friend to your heart, or is it a foe? A heart helper or a heart hazard? I mean, the data has been all over the place, which makes getting a straight answer feel, well, impossible. So, that's our mission today: follow the trail of evidence and see where it leads. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, the Great Heart Health Scare. I mean, where did all this concern even come from? It wasn't random, that's for sure. A couple of big studies came out that really sent a jolt through the entire medical world. And boy, did things snowball fast. First, you had something called the P trial. This was kind of the first big red flag, suggesting a potential risk for heart attacks and irregular heartbeats. Then, another study using a huge VA database, the VIGIN data, seemed to back it up, especially in patients who were already high risk. And with those two studies, the panic was real. So real, in fact, that the FDA stepped in and said, okay, hold on. We need a massive, definitive trial to figure this out once and for all. But just when it seemed like the case was closed, testosterone is risky, end of story, a new batch of research started to pop up, and it began to challenge everything, suggesting the picture was way, way more complex than that. So, some researchers took a much smarter approach. They said, look, it's not just about treatment versus no treatment. Let's get more granular. They took a bunch of men with clinically low testosterone and split them into three groups. You had Group A, who got no treatment at all, then Group B, who got testosterone, but for whatever reason, their levels never really got back to normal, and then the crucial one, Group C. They got testosterone, and it worked. Their levels were successfully normalized. The big question was, is that the magic ingredient, actually getting to a normal level? And what they found? Well, it was a total game changer. The results were the complete opposite of what everyone was expecting. It just flipped the whole script on its head. This is what we now call the normalization effect. The guys in Group C, the ones who got their testosterone back into a normal range, didn't just do okay, they did better. We're talking a lower risk of heart attack, a lower risk of stroke, and even a lower risk of dying overall. And get this, even in patients who were already at high risk, getting their levels to normal showed no signal of harm. So the thinking started to shift. Maybe the real danger wasn't the treatment, but the low testosterone itself. Okay, with all that in mind, let's zoom in on one very specific piece of this heart puzzle: atrial fibrillation. You've probably heard it called AFib. It's the most common kind of irregular heartbeat out there. So, AFib is a huge deal globally. And here's where it gets really interesting. Big long-term studies, like the super famous Framingham Heart Study, had already noticed a weird pattern. They found that for every drop in a man's testosterone, the risk of getting AFib went up. So, again, all signs were pointing to low T being the bad guy here. And sure enough, a 2017 study that used that same clever three-group design found the exact same thing for AFib. The men who normalized their testosterone levels saw the risk of AFib go down. The story seemed pretty simple and consistent, right? Low T is bad, normal T is good. But then came the plot twist. All right, remember that giant FDA-demanded study we talked about earlier? Well, this is it, the TRAVERSE trial. This was supposed to be the one, the final, definitive answer on all this. Literally, the entire medical world was holding its breath. After years of conflicting data, this was it, the big reveal. So, what did the TRAVERSE trial find? It found a higher risk of atrial fibrillation with testosterone therapy. Yeah, you heard that right. The biggest, baddest, most definitive trial found that the treatment actually increased the risk of AFib. This flew in the face of all the other data. So, what on earth is going on here? And this, my friends, is where we get the aha moment. This is how we solve the puzzle. Researchers figured out they weren't asking the right question. It wasn't just about if someone got treatment, but what specific level of testosterone they ended up with. And that changed everything. So, here's the paradox laid out bare. On one hand, we have data showing that normalizing testosterone lowers your AFib risk. On the other, the biggest trial ever says that therapy raises it. How can both possibly be true? Well, it's because the relationship isn't a simple straight line. The answer is what's called a U-shaped curve. Think about it like this. If your testosterone is too low, your risk for AFib is high. But, and this is the key, if your testosterone is too high, your risk is also high. The safest place to be, the lowest risk, is right in the middle. Not too low, not too high, just right. Exactly. The effect is not linear, it's a U-shaped curve, and the sweet spot is in the middle range. This brilliant insight explains everything. See those earlier studies that looked so positive? They were mostly watching men go from the too low danger zone into that safe middle zone. Of course they saw a benefit. But the giant Traverse trial, it probably pushed some of its participants past the middle and into the too high danger zone. And that's why, on average, their overall risk went up. Both findings were true. So what is this Goldilocks zone? What are the actual numbers? Well, the data suggests that the sweet spot, the range with the lowest AFib risk, is somewhere between 350 and 550 nanograms per deciliter. Dip below that, your risk climbs. Go above that, your risk climbs again. Okay, we've gone through a lot of data. So what does all of this actually mean for you? Let's boil it down to the key takeaways. First, and most importantly, it's not about high versus low testosterone, it's about being in the right range. Second, that therapeutic sweet spot is actually pretty narrow, that 350 to 550 we just talked about. This means the dose isn't just important, it's absolutely critical. You also have to look at the whole person. Things like sleep apnea can be made worse by testosterone, and sleep apnea itself is a trigger for AFib, so you have to connect the dots, which all leads to the final most important point. Treatment has to be personalized. One size does not fit all. So it leaves us with this big question, right? Is the future of hormone therapy all about this kind of precision? It seems we've moved way past a simple good or bad debate and into a much more sophisticated world of U-shaped curves and razor-thin therapeutic windows. It really suggests that the future isn't about just prescribing a hormone, but about carefully, precisely hitting a target for every single individual. Thanks for digging into this with me.